This Matt?
Yes, it sure is.
Hey, Kent Hovind, we finally get to talk.
I,
What state are you in, man?
I'm in Minnesota right now.
Minnesota, yeah, sure, you betcha.
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
Love it up there. My parents are from La Crosse, Wisconsin. And, well, good. Have you talked to Bob, Ben, and Thompson?
Yes, I have. Yep.
Okay, good. Well, how can I help? I mean, several people wanted me to tell about the case. I don't know. I'd love to do that, but
Sure.
tell me what you need.
Yes. Could you please tell me a little bit more about the mail fraud case? I was actually just I was just discussing the recent news articles when I was down in Phoenix last weekend. I was with Stephen Anderson.
Okay, what news articles are you talking? I don't get to see the
Oh
news
yeah,
in
yeah.
here.
They were just posting articles on like the Pensacola paper, and I think it was in the Florida State paper as well. And then I know Gia has been posting some stuff as well.
Well, basically, mail fraud carries a 20-year sentence. You can go to prison for 20 years for mail fraud. Their basic premise is that I filed a lien on the church ministry, which they say is the government property, when actually I still think it's the church ministry property because the case isn't over yet. And it can still be overturned at the root, and should be. But mail fraud is saying using the mail to send in a fraudulent document or something to try to get money from the government. Well, none of that is true. Okay, absolutely none of that. What happened? Have you followed the whole case from the beginning? Do you know what happened?
I am still looking into it. Yes. Oh yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah. Like the case all the way from 2006.
Yeah, IRS case against our church ministry.
Yes.
They,
Yep.
they said we structured funds to, which is not true at all, but that's what the jury ruled because the judge changed the jury instructions to say if he finds the Hovind took less than 10,000, find him guilty. The quickest way to get up to speed on that is to go to 2peter3.com and read the complaint I filed against the U.S. Attorney and the complaint I filed against the judge, and where it spells some of those things out. They also not only changed the jury instructions, somebody changed the trial transcript. After we paid about $6,000 to get the copy of the transcript of the trial, so you got to have that before you can appeal. It took 16 months to get the transcript. Typically it takes 2 months to get a transcript from a trial. Well, it took them 16 months to get it to me because somebody was tampering with it and changing things of the trial transcript for whatever reasons. Okay, so we finally get the transcript, put in the appeal, lose the appeal. Everybody loses the appeal. Go to Supreme Court. They don't even hear it because they only hear 65 cases out of 11,000 a year. They just simply don't hear it. After that, you have 1 year to file what's called a 2255, which is just the number of the law that says you can say, I want this case overturned because my attorney was ineffective. My attorney blew it on the following 5 or 10 or 20 things. Well, we had a whole list of things my attorney blew it on, and I was going to file a 2255. So I'm in South Carolina, and they moved me against my will from South Carolina to Jessup, Georgia, and then moved me to Colorado, and then New Hampshire. Meanwhile, all this time I'm writing to the South Carolina saying, look, where is my box of legal materials? I left it there. Send my box of legal materials. I've got to have it for my lawsuit because you have a 12-month deadline to file that 2255. It took them 20 months to send me the legal box. Over a year and a half. So I finally get my legal box and they say, well, it's too late to file your 2255. I say, well, it's your fault. You kept my box. Hello. And so they refused to hear the 2255 case. That was the judge in Pensacola, the same one I'm going before again. Refused to hear the 2255. So I get up in New Hampshire and my cellie says, well, hey, Ken, you can file a Bivens claim. I said, what is that? He said, some guy named Bivens had the same problem where they delayed. It's the government's fault, this delay was. I mean, they kept your legal box, so file a Bivens suit and demand that they pay the damages and that they rule that the 2255 is late because it's their fault. And then you can go back and file a 2255. I said, oh, okay. So I filed a Bivens suit. He said, now that the Bivens suit is filed, you can file a lis pendens. I said, what is that? He said, that's Latin. That means litigation is pending. So don't sell this property property, or if you buy the property, just be aware that you may lose it. Simply a notice that what's happening with the property, somebody else may have a claim to that title. So you can still sell it if you want, if they're dumb enough to buy it. So a lis pendens is technically not a lien, it's just letting folks know.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
It's a public notice that there may be litigation over this property. So he fills out a lis pendens to file on these properties that the government wants to sell. The government thinks they seized them already and changed the name on them. And in their little mind, it's case closed. It's over. Of course, done. Don't you dare question us. In my mind, hey, it's God's property, and the case is still pending. So yes, it's perfectly legitimate to file a lis pendens. So then they sell the property anyway. They just simply remove the lis pendens, tell the county take these off and remove them, and so they sell the property anyway. No problem, no harm done. Then last June or July, I guess, I get a notice that I'm going to be hauled back into court for mail fraud, for mailing a lien or something through the mail. So there's multiple problems with this. It carries a 20-year sentence for mail fraud. They have to prove that you deliberately, willfully, intentionally wanted to defraud the government. None of that is true. I want to get this case heard. I want to see justice. I think everybody in the world needs to know what's going on with this incredibly stupid case from the beginning. I think the real criminals need to be investigated by Congress and by their bosses and everything else. And all I've ever done is follow the law. Lawfully, I had a right to file a Bivens suit. Lawfully, I had a right to file a lis pendens because that South Carolina case could indeed overturn the case and make the property go back to the original owner. The property can't move. It's not like you can run away with it, It's not like you can hide it. It's property. What are you going to do? So there's absolutely none of what they're accusing me of is true. But the way they work it with juries and stuff, these guys are professionals. And, you read through the book of Acts and see how many times the disciples were harassed by professional liars, professional con men, and they call it false witnesses. They stoned Naboth and got his vineyard by hiring, false witnesses. And I have lost nearly all of my confidence and respect in those claiming the name of government. They will lie, cheat, steal, etc. And it's sad. I mean, I love my country, but I fear for what's happening to us. We're headed down the wrong trail. So anyway, the last I heard, December 1st, 3 weeks, is when the trial is. Since everything in the church, all the church properties belong to the trust, the trustee, Paul Hansen, filed a quiet title action in the court. Apparently, I never saw it until a couple weeks ago when my public defender brought it to me. I don't know what he was doing, but my Sally in North Carolina, or in North New Hampshire, said, Kent, the judge claims those are your properties, so you can file a lis pendens. Oh, well, okay. And sure enough, the judge said there is no trust, there is no CSE ministry, it all belongs to Kent Hovind personally. And so the judge never ordered me not to file anything. The judge ordered Paul Hansen not to file anything. And they never sent me a copy of the order they sent to Paul Hansen. Sent it to him. So I don't, everybody who's looked at it says they don't have a...
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
They don't have a case at all. They're just doing this to be vindictive because I filed a complaint against the judge. I filed a complaint against the U.S. attorney. All I've ever done is what 1 Timothy 1:8 says we can do, use the law lawfully. And so I would never disobey a law deliberately or willfully or intentionally. I think they would in a heartbeat.
Right.
The law means nothing to these guys. So when it comes to trial, I'm going to be the only one under oath who, with the potential of going to jail. So if I lie, they'll get me for some crime. Now they can lie because they're not under oath. It's weird the setup the way it works. It's evil, just absolutely evil. So we don't know what's going to happen. I think their case falls apart on multiple fronts, but I thought so last time too, and they put me in prison for 10 years.
Right.
This all stems back. The government thinks they own the property. because they think they seized it based on structured funds. So really, to understand this case, you have to understand the previous case, which is the structuring charge, which is all up on, it's all up on 2peter3.com.
Okay.
You can read all that. All right, so what specifically is the Pensacola News Journal saying, or what do I need to defend myself against with them?
Let me open it up on my computer and see what it says on here.
Yeah, in the book of Acts, chapter 16, Paul and Silas were beaten and thrown in prison. The great miracle, the earthquake, and worked out great. God always uses this for His glory. But at the end of the chapter, the magistrate sent a note down saying, hey, tell those guys they can go home now. And Paul said, no. You come and release us publicly. We want an apology. We didn't do anything wrong, and we're Roman citizens. We were beaten, uncondemned, illegally.
Okay.
And they got it. They got a public apology. And, hey, guys, would you please get out of town? And they did not get out of town. They stayed right there. And so I think what the government did in my case at multiple levels was just pure evil. And they're trying to put me back in jail or keep me in jail to shut me up for what happened, for their crimes. They're the ones that broke the law.
Right.
And I have no power against them. This is going to have to be God do this. I think God has already shown Himself, and I don't wish evil on anybody. But shortly after trial, they went. One of the U.S. attorneys went down and seized the church bank account. And then a couple weeks later, he flew to Detroit to have sex with a 5-year-old, got arrested, and hung himself in his prison cell up in Detroit. That was October 5th of 2007. Anybody can Google that. His name is John David Roy Atchison, Atchison. And then the other one that I filed a complaint against, Michelle Heldmeyer. She got a divorce and has moved to Colorado, Grand Junction, Colorado. And I have filed several complaints against what she did. 4-page complaint explaining all the laws that she broke. And I just was told recently that she now has cancer. She's younger than me. I don't wish evil on anybody. But when this first happened and I went to prison, I prayed and I said, Lord, I want this case completely overturned, and I want it to be national news. They need to know Kent Hovind did not deliberately break any laws. My only purpose in defending my name and reputation is because it's tied so closely with the outreach of the gospel.
Right.
People won't watch my videotapes if they think I'm some kind of criminal.
Right.
And I am not. I did not break any laws that I know of. I did not structure any funds. I did not break any IRS codes or laws. I certainly did not threaten anybody. They gave me 3 years in prison for praying for an IRS agent on the radio. It is so far off the reality, like you've got to be kidding.
Right.
They called it a threat when I prayed for him on the radio. Well, I still pray for all of them, and I still hope God intervenes in a powerful way, and I still want it to be national news. So, I think their wise move would be, hey, drop this charge, pay him the damages, and leave him alone.
Right.
I've said for years, a lot of animals that eat grass have horns. You don't need horns to eat grass, but you need horns to explain to the lion, stay off my back so I can eat the grass. And I'm a peace-loving man. I've been married 41 years and have never hit my wife. I will confess, I have thought about it a couple times, but okay,
You have 60 seconds remaining.
You can ask my kids. I just never raise my voice. I don't yell and scream. I don't get angry very often. I'm peaceful. But what they did was wrong, and somebody needs to say, look, guys, stop what you're doing. Leave me alone. I can call back in 1 minute. You want me to call back and finish up here, brother?
That sounds good.
Yeah, they shut the phones off after 15 minutes. I'll call right back in 1 minute here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay, Dr. Kent Hovind said he would call right back. Again, I'm speaking here from Minnesota. He said the guy who hung himself in Detroit after having sex with a 5-year-old, his name is John David Roy Atchison, JohnDavidRoyAtchison. You can look it up on the internet, and you can also look up many news articles, especially the Pensacola News Journal. It has what their interpretation of what's going on. They have it laid out there. And you also heard everything Dr. Dino said regarding the case. And he's calling right back.
Call from
Kent Hovind.
an inmate at the Santa Rosa County Sheriff. Your call was not accepted.
Okay, it said the call was not accepted. Hopefully he calls right back. We'll see if he decides to call back here. While we're waiting for that, I think the best thing we can do here is, although it's obvious that the government is completely out of line here, and Ken Hovind is completely in the right. He's calling right back. While it goes through the introduction here, I think anyone could easily see that it's probably the best idea just for him to get out, and then once he's out, then use everything he has in his power now that he's not confined under the government's arm, and then expand his ministry from there when people can hear him face to face and not through a buffer. Anyways, let me connect him back on the phone here.
7-650-4249. To hear the cost of this call, press 8 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Hey, brother, I forgot to let you know, you have to listen to their whole speech every time before you press 5.
Okay.
It's a retarded system.
Yeah, I just realized that.
Every time you put money on the account, they're going to take off $7 for the transaction fee. Whether you put $10 on or put $1,000 on.
Okay.
You're going to put $7. So if anybody else wants me to call them, I would be thrilled to defend myself, and I think the world needs to hear the whole truth. I doubt seriously they'll let me tell the whole truth in trial. They're
Right.
going to make me swear to tell the whole truth, but then they won't let me do it. But the whole truth is, I think the government is at fault at multiple levels here, and they are trying to cover it up by blaming it on me and making sure I stay quiet. Well, all I want is the truth told. It's a Philippians chapter 1. Paul was in prison, and he said, look, the gospel's going out even further because of my bonds. So if my being in prison motivates people to get out and win souls and evangelize, well, yay. I hate it here. I don't want to be here. Never did want to be here. But this is God's problem. I'm his child. I'm one of his soldiers, and when he wants me back on the firing line, he can send an earthquake or send a tornado or, send a heart attack, or he can do whatever he wants to do. With the one guy, Herod, in the Bible, he got eaten with worms. They ate him up from the inside with worms. And God can do whatever he wants. I'm his child. So all I want to do is get the truth told. One illustration I give, because of 1 Corinthians chapter 10, where it says all the things that happened in the Bible were for our examples, or in samples, it says in verse 6 and 11. I look at the Bible for examples of what should I do, how should I handle this. If you look at the story of Gideon in Judges chapter 7, all Gideon had was noise, trumpets, and light. Break the lantern, break the pitcher, and shine the light. 300 guys surrounded an army of...
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
300 guys surrounded an army of about 1 million, shined the light, and blew the trumpet. And the enemy all started killing each other. The Midianites started fighting the Ammonites, and the electric lights and all them light boys started beating each other, and they killed each other. Well, all I'm praying is that all I have for my weapons in this warfare is light and noise. So the more people that know the truth about this and shine the light, the better, in my opinion, because I would love to tell the whole truth. I think this can be attacked at multiple levels. The chance of winning in court is close to zero. They win over 99% of their cases, and they brag that they can lock up a ham sandwich. I'm convinced they could, from what I've seen. But their boss, Congress, needs to step in on this one. There needs to be a full congressional investigation. What happened in the Hovind case? Who changed the trial transcript? Who changed the jury instructions and why? Who went and seized church property for a personal tax bill? How can you just simply decide that that ministry property belongs to an individual? Why didn't they go seize Walmart or McDonald's? They've got more money. Why would they seize CSE property for Kent Hovind's tax bill? And there's just 1,000 things that need to be investigated. The Commerce Department needs to get involved here and say, look, why are you spending all this money on this? What are you going to gain? I can tell you the only reason they're spending all this money on this trial is they want to bury me and shut me up, just so their sin isn't exposed. That's the reason. So the Commerce Department needs to call here and say, look, Pensacola, shut this case down. The Treasury Department can do that. The Justice Department can call off the dogs. The new conservative Congress can call off the dogs. There's all kinds of things can happen. But certainly my case is an example of what went wrong in the justice system. And I think people all over the world need to be calling their congressmen, their legislators, saying, look, stop this insanity. It's not my job to judge the judge. It's Congress's job. But federal judges are appointed for life during good behavior, according to the Constitution. If there was some misbehavior in this case, as I think there was, like changing the trial transcript, somebody did, like changing the jury instructions to not cite the law correctly, I think there were numerous things that and they're all in my complaint, which is public knowledge up on 2peter3.com and numerous other websites that have copied that and posted it. I think Congress needs to do their job and investigate, because if the judge is impeached, then that would cause a cloud on all the cases, and certainly on my case, and would go back and undo it at the root, back in 2006. So that's something anybody could and should do. You know, all through history, there have been a few people in a country that say, look, we've got to make a change here. During Nazi Germany, there were some Christians. The German church split into two groups, the confessing church and the German Christians. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, look, what Hitler is doing is wrong. We have to stand up against this. Hitler said, I want all churches to have the Nazi flag on their altar. Well, the church then has to make a decision. Do we do what Hitler says, or we do what God says? And it was quite a split in the German church. There's a split to this day in the Chinese, communist Chinese church. There's what they call the three self-denial, self-something else, I forget. Those are the ones that go along with the communists, do what they say, fill out their reports, let the government know who's members, how much people give to their church, blah, blah, blah. Then there's the house church that just says, no, it's not their business, and we're going to meet privately in the woods and have our church service. And so it's always been a battle between those who want to let the government control the church and those who say, no, the government has a legitimate function, but running the church is not one of those functions. And this was the basis of the Revolutionary War in 1776. They said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain rights. And I have said publicly in my seminar many, many times, where do rights come from? Where does the right to breathe come from? Where does the right to go to church come from? Does government give you the right to get married, or does God give you the right to get married? You know, where do rights come from? This is a fundamental issue. And it really goes back to the creation or evolution topic. If evolution is true, then we are just an animal, and, you know, there is no God, so we decide right and wrong. Man, humanism. If creation is true, and evolution is not true, well, then God makes those decisions of right and wrong. You know, why is murder wrong? Well, because God said it's wrong. But if you look in the jungle, the law of the jungle, and the lion wants to go kill the zebra, well, is that murder? If they were humans, certainly. You know, the zebras are out there calmly eating grass, and the lion goes and jumps on his back and kills him. Yeah, we would call that murder if it was humans. So this is really a creation-evolution issue. So if creation is true and God makes the rules, then we better find out what He says and do it. And I think my seminar on creation versus evolution was a huge threat to those who really would like to have a one-world government, a new world order, which is racing toward us like a freight train. And so I think they have to put me in prison and shut me up because my ministry was effective in getting people to think, well, whoa, it's kind of like the Matrix. You know, why are we plugged into this thing? What is going on here? I love my country. we definitely need government. We need laws. And all I've ever done is use the law lawfully. Like it says in 1 Timothy 1:8, I have the lawful right to file a complaint. I have a lawful right to file a lis pendens. I have a lawful right to file a lawsuit, a tort claim. I have never done anything violent and won't. I've never done anything illegal and won't. All I've done is use the law, and it frustrates them to death because they do not use the law. They lie, they steal, they cheat. And I and many other people who studied this case will quickly say, we think that the properties do not belong to the U.S. government. They are God's properties, they're church property, and the case is not closed yet. The 2255 could still overturn it. There is still litigation pending. Now, another thing Congress can do, if they had any brains, they would pass a law that says these structuring laws that we passed years ago to catch drug dealers are abolished. Throw out the structuring laws. Get rid of them. It's none of anybody's business how you spend your money or deposit or withdraw your money. The purpose was to catch drug dealers, apparently. Well, they're catching a lot of other people in the net, like me. I've never taken drugs, never will, never tasted alcohol, never will. Why on earth am I in prison for structuring funds when the law was designed to catch drug dealers? If Congress would pass a law that says this law, they would repeal the structuring laws and make it very clear that this is retroactive, i.e. anybody in prison for breaking these laws, that case is overturned. Congress can do that in 10 minutes.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
People need to be contacting Congress saying, look, would you repeal that stupid structuring law and let Kent Hovind out of prison? That is another totally separate line of attack that the judge could do nothing about. Because I could go in and say the sky is blue and she would deny it, I assure you. We've asked her to recuse herself because I filed a complaint against her. There's going to be a little bit of prejudice here, you think, about me going in for anything. And so this charge, mail fraud, carries a 20-year sentence. And I think the jury needs to know that. The purpose of the news, lately I've been on all kinds of news media around here about this upcoming trial, is to let the Channel 3 News and the Pensacola News Journal, it covers the whole panhandle of Florida, which is exactly where they will draw the jury from. So right. I would call that jury tampering. They're trying to prepare the jury pool to say, oh, that guy must be guilty of something.
Okay.
When you go to trial, you're supposed to start off. You're supposed to start off with the presumption that you're 100% innocent. Oh, they're calling me to visit. Okay, wonderful. Brother, I'll call back later this afternoon. Would that be good?
Yeah, that sounds excellent.
Okay, give me a couple hours. I'll call you back. Thank you. Bye.
Sounds great. Bye. There you have it. Dr. Kent Hovind was able to give me a lot more information than I've ever able to see online. Make sure you spread this to your friends. Copy it off. If you see this on YouTube, go to keepvid.com, keepvid.com, and you can get the MP3 file for this video, and you can share it with all your friends on Facebook or whatever. Get all this message out, and just realize he was talking about jury at the end there. I think everyone needs to know that even if the jury's tampered with, and even if the judge tells the jury to try and vote guilty, the jury can say Kent Hovind is innocent regardless of what evidence is presented, and they can't do it, and no one can do anything about it. So that's certainly an idea we could take here. Something else I suggest you look at is to look up the video CSE 103 Class 6 on YouTube and have a look at that, and you can see maybe why the government is doing all of this. Other than that, Kent Hovind will call me back later, and we'll just take this for what it is worth. Please share with all your friends, and let me know what's going on. This is some pretty scary stuff.
I don't think Christians especially realize how much influence they can have with one email or one phone call or one letter to their congressman telling them, this is what I want you to do. After all, we send them to Washington. So if just a few hundred people do something, it has a great effect on these guys. They think, wow, the whole country is for this, So I would encourage Christians to become politically active in a whole variety of things. We can make change. It was mostly Christians that were involved in the revolution to get America away from the British back in 1776. The British were terrified of what what they called the 5th Regiment, or the Black Regiment. That was all the preachers, because they usually wore black clothing in those days, black coats and black pants. So they said, man, these Baptist preachers especially, they called them the 5th Regiment. They said that's what really beat the British. And pastors ought to get busy and stand up for what's right, like against abortion and stuff like that. There's 1,000 things they can do. One thing they should do, Congress should pass a law that says it's against the law for anyone involved in law enforcement. That would be judges, sheriffs, deputies, Congress included. Anybody who makes or enforces the laws should not be allowed to own stock in the prison system or profit from the prison system in any way. As it is now, the longer they lock people up, the more they make on their second job or their investments. A lot of judges own stock in the prison system. So, of course, the longer they lock you up, the more money they make. This is evil. Capital E, evil. That's got to be stopped. Certainly exposed. So that would be something I would encourage people to do, is push for that kind of common sense legislation. The website, 2 Peter 3...
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
The website, 2peter3.com, has all kinds of stuff about my case and what happened, and some guy in Massachusetts runs that. Or a guy in Georgia volunteered to do it years ago. And so, but I hope it's Gina. I've never met Gina either, but she posts a lot of stuff. And I would encourage people. It's not because it's me, though of course I do have a selfish motive. I do want to get out and go home, meet Grandpa, and go back to preaching. But I think there's a bigger picture that this really is the tip of the iceberg of the government intervention into churches and ministries and Big Brother watching. So I'm for government. I'm for law and order. I'm against the New World Order. I think we need Jesus running the world, not a bunch of politicians running the world.
I agree.
Anyway, if you know anybody else who'd like to do an interview, please explain to them how to set up the phone and give me some numbers to call. I call in once every other day to Robert Breaker here in Pensacola, right near where I'm at. He comes to visit once in a while. If you want to write his information down, his wife, Elizabeth, she kind of acts as volunteer secretary for me, and she'll report and she'll say, oh, you got to call these people on this, this number.
Okay.
You can call Robert Breaker, and then the number 3 at hotmail.com. Robert Breaker, Breaker, Robert Breaker, number 3, hotmail.com. His phone number, and I just called in there just to check and see if there's any messages. You can call them or Ernie, either one. Ernie Land, Land, at docbog at docbog.com. But I'll be glad to. I got nothing to hide. In fact, they're going to make me swear at trial to tell the whole truth. And then they're going to try to stop me from telling the whole truth. That's just the way they do it. They don't want the whole truth to be known. For instance, most jurors don't know. They can totally ignore what the judge says. Absolutely ignore the judge. The judge is the referee. The jury is in charge. There's a thing that people ought to look up on the internet called jury nullification.
Absolutely.
If your city passed a law, that said you can't spit on the sidewalk, and you thought it was a stupid law, they shouldn't have got no business passing that law. And you get on a jury, then somebody's caught for spitting on the sidewalk. They bring him in, and they got videotape, and it's just obvious he spit on the sidewalk. Okay, there's no question. You can still vote not guilty.
And that's the end of it.
In spite of the evidence, because that nullifies the law, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
Man, we're getting a real bad ring back here. I don't know. I want to check your all connections there. I can hear myself twice. But I would encourage jurors to get what they're trying to do now, in my case, with all the media in this panhandle of Florida, with the news and all this kind of stuff, is to really taint the jury pool. So they've already got a negative impression. In the Zimmerman trial in Florida, a couple of years ago, when the guy shot the black kid that came to the neighborhood, Zimmerman's lawyer did a classic job of starting off. He had a big chart. He said, now, number 1 up here at the top is absolute, complete innocence. My client is totally, totally innocent. Number 2 is there's a little shade of doubt, and maybe, and number 3 is a little more shade. He went all the way down to number, 7 or 8 or 9, whatever he did. Completely, no question. He's 100% guilty, no question. He said, now, in America, you start off up here at 1. You are assumed to be 100% innocent. The government's job is to move you as a jury all the way down here to number 8 or 9. There's no question he's guilty. So what you have to decide, have you been moved all the way to 9? That's the only way you could actually vote guilty in this case. If he's at a 7 or 8, you can't really vote guilty, because in America you're completely innocent until proven guilty. But the U.S. attorneys are really good at tricking juries, I would say, and tainting juries like they're doing now with the news media. So they start off at 4 or 5. Well, we're not. One guy, when he went to select a jury for his trial, he said, "Now, how many of you think I'm 100% innocent?" Nobody raised their hand. They said, "We don't know yet. You haven't been to trial." "Oh, then you're dismissed. I don't want you on the jury. If you don't think I'm 100% innocent right now, you shouldn't be on the jury." And somebody who goes in for jury duty should not be on a jury unless they start with the assumption this guy is 100% innocent.
Amen.
But with all the news media, they start off thinking, "Well, we don't know. We're going to decide." No, then you shouldn't be on a jury. It's already decided he's innocent. That's where you start. That's where it's supposed to start. Plus, in America, there's supposed to be a jury of your peers. P-E-E-R-S. That's people who know you, who grew up with you, who like you, who understand you. One guy said, "I don't want anybody on the jury who works for the government in a tax case, because they're dependent on taxes for their salary. Of course, they're going to be biased." Another guy said, I only want small business people on my peer group jury because I'm a small business owner and they understand. It started off in America where your jury was 12 people who knew you. They knew your character. They knew what you were like. But now they try very hard to find people who don't know you. That's not a jury of peers. I mean, what happened to our system? Anyway, it's bizarre. And I don't want to go off on a rabbit trail chasing all those things either. My job is to preach the gospel, just like the disciples in the book of Acts. They're just out preaching, doing what Jesus said, and they kept getting hassled and arrested and beaten and threatened and killed. And it's relentless. It's been this way for thousands of years. I don't expect it to get any different. But I think I have a right to defend myself, like Joseph in Egypt. He defended himself and said, "Look, I'm innocent." Job defended himself. He said, "Look, I'm innocent." King David, about 7 different times, he said, "What have I done?" He said that to Saul a couple of times. He said it to his big brother Eliab. "Look, what have I done?" If somebody could show me, in my case, what I did that was illegal, I would love to see it. I can't imagine it being illegal to take your own money out of your own bank to pay your own bills, in any amount. Why would there be a law like that to begin with? And even if there is a law like that, I don't think I broke it. I think that's pretty obvious, because it wasn't 2 withdrawals in one day. It was 12 days apart. So I think that it is ridiculous what happened, and I think the real criminals need to be investigated by a lot of people. There's a couple of more things going on in this case that I can't tell everybody about yet, but keep an eye on 2 Peter 3 and Gina's website, and stuff will be posted up there when it happens. We don't want to tip the hand right now.
Right.
But I really think God's going to get great glory in all this. I hope so. That's the goal. I prayed all along, God, overturn it, send me home, make them pay the damages, and make it worldwide news, national news. That's all I want. So, brother, you have been a blessing. If I can, if you know anybody else that wants me to call them or interview or anything, I'd be thrilled. I can't do live radio programs, I don't think. I will contact the jail people here and ask, and I know I can't do 3-way calls, but of course I can't control what you do on your end, but I would love people to take notes furiously and get stuff posted everywhere. There is so much negative press now, especially in the Pensacola area. The Pensacola news media here, the TV and print media, ought to be getting flooded with people like you calling in saying, "Hey, you ought to hear the truth about this," and write little articles or blogs or something. Right now it's a media war, like a political campaign, negative campaign, and it's all one-sided now. It's all negative Kent Hovind. Nobody's out there. It's a Proverbs 27:2. If somebody else has to defend me in this, it can't be me, because it'll sound obviously self-serving.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Is it possible that?
Been a blessing.
Yeah. Is it possible that you could contact me more often? Maybe like in a couple of days or so?
money on your account.
Right.
I'll call as often as you want, and you just have a list of questions. You find stuff to say on the media. Give me a...
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
In America, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
In communist Russia, you're guilty until proven guilty. Okay, well, this is still America. We're headed toward communism, I know, but yeah, I'll be thrilled to call every other day if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's a good time for you? What's a good time?
Tuesday and Thursday mornings are my best time.
Okay, Tuesday and Thursday. At what, 9 o'clock or so?
How about a little bit later? Like 11 o'clock.
Well, I have lunch at 10 and I have Tuesdays is when we have visits here, 11 to 1.
Okay.
Or they have family come.
Yeah, definitely don't want to miss
It'll
that.
have to be 9:30 or so.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds okay.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Okay, 9:30 a.m. Thursday. I'll call you back and you get a list of questions and check everything, make sure you can take notes furiously and get it where it's legible for people. And please keep Gina and also Hal, who runs the 2 Peter 3 website. Email any response you get to Hal at 2peter3.com and he'll post it up there.
Okay.
All right, brother, you've been a blessing. I'll call Steve in a couple hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. All right, there you have it. There is a quick breakdown of everything he said regarding the case. Definitely some very good information. Be sure to share this with your friends. Again, he gave us some contact information. One of them was Ernie Land, ERNIELAND. He has resources for these calls. If you want to place a call, just let me or Gia know, and we can get you set up. Again, his email is docfog@docfog.com, docfog@docfog.com, and his number is 850-956-2031. We also have Robert Breaker. I'm not sure if he meant Robert Breaker 3 or Robert Breaker number 3 at hotmail.com, but you can try either one. ROBERTBREAKERNUMBER3 at hotmail.com. Otherwise, ROBERTBREAKER3 at hotmail.com. However, I think NUMBER is in there. And his phone number is 850-626-0753. If you get any updates, please send them to hal at 2peter3.com. That is HAL at 2peter3.com. And he will upload those. Please share with all your friends, and I'll see you again soon.
8314. This call will be recorded and monitored. Your advance pay account balance is $2.48. For customer assistance, billing inquiries, or to block future calls, dial 1-877-650-4249. To hear the cost of this call, press 8 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up. This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Hey, good morning, brother.
Hey, Ken. How's it going today?
Doing great. You only got about 8 minutes left, and they're going to run out of money and shut the phone off. They put more money on the account. They said you got $2 on there or something.
Okay.
$0.02 a minute. I'm doing fine. If you need me to call back, I don't know how long it takes. Every time you do any transactions with these folks, it costs $7.
Okay.
So if you put $10 on, they're going to take away $7. If you put $100 on, they're going to take away $7.
Okay.
That's just part of this scheme to make money. You know, it's 1 Timothy 6:10.
Absolutely.
Logo company. Yeah. Anyway, yes, sir. How can I help you? Or what topic you got on mind?
Could you tell me a little bit more about your setting up your legal counsel? I know you talked with Steven Anderson on Tuesday, and you had some discussion about that. I know we're trying to get some stuff set up. I know we have a fund set up for you, but what else going on in your head regarding that?
Well, Ernie Land is really the guy to talk to about that. Anybody can contact Ernie Land if they want to help. He's at .fog, like a document, DOCFOG, at .fog.com. Kind of a strange email, but that's it. Or they can call him, 850, several phone numbers for Ernie. He's been such a blessing. I just talked to him. But if anybody wants to help with legal defense, that would be a blessing. He's looking at a couple guys now 656-2031. He's in the Panhandle of Florida. Been a friend of mine for many, many years, 20-some years, and I would trust him with everything. So yeah, let him handle that. He's, as far as legal defense, I don't know how all that works. But I really think if the jury is allowed to hear the whole truth, the case can't go anywhere. I don't see how it can. I mean, I didn't do anything deliberately wrong, and I never have, and Lord willing, never will. I tried desperately to obey all the laws.
Right.
Can you check and see if my affidavit that I filed in 2005 is up online someplace? That is 10 pages long. It explains the whole long turmoil I went through trying to get, especially these IRS CID agents who seem to have nothing in their head to stop anything between the ears. Just like
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
I tried to say, look, here's what I read in the law, here's what I'm being advised, tell me where I'm wrong, and please help me. And they never answer me any letters. They just come arrest you. You know, very similar to Hitler's goons, the Gestapo,
okay.
SS, stuff like that.
Yeah, your affidavit's online.
Oh, good, okay. That, if anybody would read that, that would explain everything I tried before I got arrested. And then since I got arrested, all the things they did wrong to lock me up, they're all up there on 2 Peter 3. You know, like the complaint against the judge, the complaint against Michelle Heldemeyer, the U.S. attorney. I feel bad. You know, as I read the Bible, I see more and more illustrations of how this is so similar to things that have happened all through history. The book of Acts especially has over 50 incidents where disciples were persecuted, beaten, threatened, or killed. Just all they want to do is go preach, and boy, the enemy hates that. And that's all I want to do is go teach. I don't want this fight at all. And some of the Christians think, you know, this is my fault. I could read my affidavit, read my complaints, and tell me specifically, what did I do wrong?
Right.
One guy said, well, you're supposed to pay taxes. I said, I agree. I pay every tax I owe. I pay loads of taxes. I'm not against taxes. I'm not a tax protester. Show me what... I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of taxes. There's a tax on people who make whiskey. Okay? I don't pay that tax because I don't make whiskey. Hello? You know, taxes are very specific for certain activities, and if I do that activity, I pay that tax.
Right.
I love my country. You have to have government. I'm not anti-government. I'm not a tax protester. I'm trying to obey the law. And they are not. They're just very unqualified. They're the lawbreakers, in my humble, totally unbiased opinion. And I just really pray that this case will be national news, go viral, and people will see the corruption. You know, people knew that Hitler was corrupt. Even his own people knew that. Even though he was winning, he was losing in the public eye. Same thing with Stalin. You know, he won and slaughtered people by the millions, but everybody knew he was wicked. In America, I think people need to realize what's happening in this case is wicked. It's wrong. Now, I may still lose and go back to prison. I don't know. I hope not, but gee whiz, it could happen. So a good legal defense team to preserve everything on appeal for the next level. Of course, even then, your chances of winning are real slim because of the stupid Supreme Court decision in 1971 about the finality of conviction is more important than anything else. Once you're convicted, it's important that the case never be overturned, probably because of some financial reason, because they get stocks or bonds on Wall Street for every prisoner they have set up. One of the guys here overheard some of the guards talking yesterday about that a lot of their pension fund is tied up in prison money coming from prison, so they're dependent on keeping prisons going for their own retirement. A lot of judges and congressmen own stock in prison industries and commissaries and phone accounts, like this outrageous phone account you have to set up on this thing for me to call. It's 1 Timothy 6:10 over and over. The love of money is truly the root of all evil.
That's right.
And so I think we should pressure Congress to say, look, pass a law. Nobody involved in law enforcement or in making laws should be allowed to own stock in or profit in any way from the prison system, including investments for their 401k. That would really anger them. Do they say if you throw a rock into a pack of dogs, the one that yells the loudest is the one that got hit? And so that's the case here. If we start putting common sense pressure on something like legislation like judges and people that yell the loudest would be the ones, oh, I bet you got money and you're making money off this, aren't you? You'd quickly find out the truth.
That's smart thinking right there. Could you tell me again what your opinion on the prison system and how it should be in this country?
Well, I think in the Bible it's real clear there are no prisons authorized by God. You either give a fine or a beating or executed. That's all clearly in God's law. I think a simple step America could take in a matter of seconds is offer people that option. You get arrested, it's obvious you're guilty, then you give the option, do you want 5 years or 10 lashes? In the Bible, you had to get the lashes in front of the judge so the judge could see what their sentence just did to you. Here, the judge says 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. They just throw out these numbers like water, and they never see the anguish of the kids and grandkids who don't get to see Grandpa and the wife. Now, what is she supposed to do, you know? I think most people who are given life sentences would rather take execution, at least give them the option. So I would start off, if I was president today, I would give an executive order that said, okay, as of today, we're out of the drug war. U.S. government is not involved. Stop all.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
This is a state issue. If Alabama wants to outlaw drugs, go for it, and people who want to take them can move to Georgia. Get the government totally out of the drug war business. Secondly, I would say the government is totally out of the welfare business. Shut it down. It's a state issue, or a county, or a church, or whatever. It's not the government's business. And I would say, from now on, anybody breaking a law on federal property that involves federal government, which ought to be cut down to about 1% of its current size, will be given the option of a fine, a beating, or execution. For instance, if you steal something, rather than go to prison for 5 years, you pay back 4 times. You come steal my motorcycle, you pay back 5 motorcycles, or 4 motorcycles, or the equivalent thereof. A beating, a fine, or execution is a whole lot cheaper on society. You know, somebody rapes your daughter, and
You have 60 seconds remaining.
you'll have to put money on me to call back, but if someone rapes your daughter, she doesn't need to pay for his groceries for the next 20 years in prison. She needs to go spit on his grave to heal emotionally. That's just common sense, and God knows that, so I would certainly work toward getting a godly, common sense approach to law enforcement.
Right. Absolutely. I think
You want me
you're
to-
absolutely right.
I can call back in a couple hours.
Yes, try
If I want
back.
to get more money on there, I can call back in a
Yes, try back in a couple hours. Otherwise, in a couple days, if a couple hours doesn't work.
Okay. Sounds great. Keep up the great work, and this needs to go viral. Tell people what's happening here. This is evil in my case.
Oh, I think it will go viral. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yep. See you soon. Bye. All right, there we have it. Ken Hovind. Got some more information out of him regarding the case. He said all of you need to look up his 2005 affidavit. It looks like it's posted on wikisource.org. So if you just go to en.wikisource.org/wiki/capital K for Kent _capital H Hovind _2005 capital A affidavit, and you can read his entire affidavit that he wrote. I think it's a very interesting read, and please share this with all your friends. Like he just said in his call, this needs to go viral, and we need to keep moving forward with this push for his innocence. Now is the time to get started. He's in a crucial point during his sentence, and we can overturn this entire thing right now. So, to God be the glory.
This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Hello, Ken Hovind here. Is this a good time to call?
Yeah, this is a really good time to call. How are you?
Okay. Good. We got a lot of noise in the background here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you great.
All right. I forget where we left off. I thought the last time we talked. I've tried a couple times to get in touch with you since then.
Yep.
Do you recall?
Yeah. Last thing we were talking about, we were talking about maybe what you had known about your like legal fund, and you told me to talk with Ernie.
Right. Ernie Land is handling all that. He's got a special number if people want to call. Let me look it up here for you. Here it is. 850-419-8255. and his email is docfog, like a document, D-O-C-F-O-G, docfog@docfog.com. Yeah, he's looking at a couple of lawyers to help and make sure we preserve everything for appeal in case we don't win at trial.
Okay.
Ideally, the best situation people can pray for is just they drop the charge. Just drop it. It's silly. It's obviously vindictive. I filed a complaint against this judge. I filed a complaint against the U.S. attorney, and I've got a tort claim against him for a bunch of money. This is pure retribution, is all it is. Everybody can see that. They should drop the charge. It's silly. Secondly, if that doesn't happen, I go to court and win or lose, and of course, if the jury is allowed to see the whole truth, which is the last thing the government wants them to see, they're going to make me swear to tell the whole truth, but then they won't let me tell the whole truth. But I think everybody else needs to be out there on Twitter and blogs and stuff. It's more than just me. It's the cause of Christ and the effectiveness of the gospel. And
this call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
My case has great ramifications for churches and ministries all over America, and also just for the average Joe Blow American who's taking their money out of the bank. The structuring laws were designed to catch drug dealers and racketeers, but they're catching innocent people who are doing nothing wrong. So that they need to repeal those stupid laws or modify them to say this is for drugs only, and then make them retroactive. Congress can vote in 5 seconds and say, okay, the structuring laws are hereby modified to say this only is for money provable from drugs, and anybody in prison currently that was put in prison for those structuring laws, we're sorry, go home. Let them out. Retroactive. That's essential. And Congress, the only language they speak is public pressure. They've got to get a lot of people calling and writing saying, look, repeal this law and let Kent out of jail. Secondly, there needs to be a complete, honest investigation of this case from start to finish. I was targeted by the IRS way before it was known that they were targeting conservative groups. I think people like Sarah Palin and some of these Tea Party groups ought to get involved and say, look, let's demand a complete, honest investigation. Why did Kent Hovind write all these letters to the IRS for years and never get a single response? Why don't they answer? And exactly who is this IRS anyway? A Delaware corporation from Puerto Rico? Why do we let them collect money for the U.S. government? Who are these people? Why do we give them a badge and a gun and let them break into people's houses and take their bank accounts? Let's do a complete investigation of what happened in my case. I have nothing to fear from that. See, what happens in the court, once they get a jury verdict, then they use that as a club from then on to beat you with, oh, well, you lost a trial. Yeah, everybody loses in trials. You get 99% win rate. The playing field is not level. That's another long, interesting story. But there's a couple guys working on books on the topic of American justice system and what's going wrong. And I think my case is a classic example of what on earth is wrong with these people. One guy in Sweden, I've sent him a lot of stuff too. He's working on a book on what went wrong in Kent's case. I'm going to stand before God, of course, one day and give an account for every word I speak, and I'm trying to be very careful. And as far as I know my heart, I am right with God on this. I have not broken any tax laws or otherwise. I have only tried to stand up for what's right and true and defend myself. If you read my 2005 affidavit that I filed with the grand jury, that's, I think, up on 2peter3.com, and with that, there were 3 letters I got from tax professionals that I paid $50 a piece for. They're about 10 pages each, and they said, no, you're doing fine. You're not breaking any laws. So I did exactly what they told me to do in their IRS booklet 517. And they just ignored it. Totally ignored it. Scott Snyder seized money out of the church safe in the 2004 raid, and then a couple months later made up a civil tax bill for that exact amount. He told my wife, I'm taking this money as evidence of a crime. Well, if it's evidence in a criminal case, how can you simply give it to the penny to a civil side of the IRS? He needs to be investigated for that, a complete investigation, and probably fired. All I want is everybody to obey the law. I'm trying. The law is extremely complicated, for one. There are hundreds and hundreds of tax laws Congress has passed. Okay, I don't make alcohol, so I don't pay an alcohol tax. I don't import, things from Africa, so I don't pay that import tax. I pay every tax I owe, as far as I know. Honestly, brother, it's been very frustrating for me, especially since I know this harms the cause of Christ and that people think I'm some kind of tax protester, and I'm not. Though I will say our country was founded by those guys, and I'm glad they did what they did. And I think sometimes that's the right way to go. But I don't do that. I'm a preacher. I want to go preach the gospel and teach on creation and dinosaurs and get people saved. And I want to be left alone. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I've never threatened anybody. I've done everything lawful. And I didn't do anything wrong in this new case either. But still, the chance of winning in court is extremely slim. Just because of the way they can stop you. They'll make you promise to tell the whole truth and then stop you from telling the whole truth because they'll say, well, that's not relevant. They've got 100, I don't know how to play their game. It'd be like me going out on a rugby field. I don't understand rugby at all. And I would lose. They're professionals. Of course I would lose. And it wouldn't mean I'm stupid. It just I don't understand their rules, their game. And I'm going to go into a court and they're going to say, swear to tell the whole truth. Exactly what court? Is this a real United States Article 3 court or is this an admiralty court? I don't understand it all, but there certainly seems to be good evidence that our courts are acting under admiralty because of that flag they have up there. They won't tell you that, but when you cross that little railing and enter into their ship, that judge is now a captain of a ship and the Constitution doesn't apply. And if you say, well, the Constitution says, don't you mention that or I'll throw you in prison. For what? Yeah, see, the Constitution doesn't apply in an admiralty court.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
And because you don't object, they just assume you must have signed up in the military because you've entered their admiralty court, you boarded our ship, excuse me. And so there's all kinds of stuff on the internet on that topic, and I don't understand it. Believe me, I don't. I smell a rat. I suspect something is seriously wrong. But the judge is not acting as an Article 3 judge. They're acting as a captain. And they have a right to flog anybody on board or put them in prison. The laws simply don't apply. And people are just baffled. Why do we keep losing in these courts? Well, because they're going in thinking that it's a regular constitutional court when it's actually under admiralty. And when you go in there, the U.S. attorneys are actually officers of the court. And they're your enemy. And your own attorney is an officer of the court. And he's your enemy. So you got the judge is your enemy and the officer is everybody. The chance of winning is close to zero. And then the Supreme Court back in 1971 made, I think, a dumb decision. They said, well, the finality of conviction is more important than anything else. So if you're convicted, they will not overturn a case unless it's just extremely egregious. They don't even look at them. Out of 11,000 cases that go to the Supreme Court every year, they only rule on 65. They only hear them. Out of those 65, it's like 1 or 2% get overturned. 6 or 7. Your chance of winning in the Supreme Court, or any court for that matter, is about like winning the lottery 4 times in a row. Close to zero. So what I want people to do in this case is to pray that God gets the glory and that they completely overturn this case at the root. Pay the damages, send me home, and leave me alone. I want to go back to preaching like I was doing before. So I think we need to pray that God steps in. He's done it many times through history. I'm in a hopeless situation as far as winning, just like Moses against Pharaoh. There is no chance of winning against Pharaoh in the battlefield. But when God steps in, now all of a sudden God levels the playing field. Yeah, there's dozens of examples in the Bible like that where the enemy was just so powerful. Gideon against the Midianites. Gee whiz, he was outnumbered about 80 to 1. And God said, you got too many, Gideon. Just narrow it down to 300. And all Gideon had was light and noise. Shine the light, make a lot of noise, and wow, God got them all fighting each other. So I'm praying specifically. See, the IRS will audit this judge if she doesn't rule for them and against me. The IRS will audit these U.S. attorneys if they don't fight like crazy to put me back in prison. So they're all scared of the IRS. Well, Congress needs to rein in the IRS and say, guys, leave him alone. Knock it off. Defund them. Take away their funding. Do a complete investigation of what happened in my case. I have nothing to fear, nothing to hide. Let's do a complete investigation and see who the real criminals are. Who broke the law? That's all I want. Now, the Apostle Paul spent a whole lot of his time in prison, being transported all over the Roman Empire, appealing to Caesar. And yet, I've got a few Christians have written to me and said, Kent, you're wrong. I said, well, show me. What did I do wrong? And be specific. They'll say, you should pay your taxes. Well, first of all, this is not about personal taxes. Nothing in my case is about personal income taxes, so they're way off on that one. But even then, I pay every single tax I owe. I always have. I've never fought it. If it's something I owe, show me why and where and how, and I'll pay it. I go to the grocery store and buy something. They say there's a 7% tax on it. Okay, great. Here's your money. I don't have time to fight this battle. So, meanwhile, here I sit, but God's used it in a powerful way, brother. I've written, I think, 37 books now, about a third of which are up and available. The rest are coming out in the next, hopefully next 6 months, up on 2peter3.com. Ernie is looking at getting a paid attorney. They're awfully expensive, and we are just broke, but to at least take the case for appeal if possible, because the government always makes 100 mistakes that you can easily appeal, and if you can get an honest appellate court to look at it, they'll say, oh yeah, they did that wrong. They love to throw out cases based on mistakes of procedure. They don't like to throw out cases based on, the actual issues. I mean, if the jury says guilty, then Zimmerman's attorney in the Zimmerman trial in Jacksonville, Florida, wherever it was, a couple years ago, where he shot the kid, his attorney, that was classic. What he did was perfect. He put a big chart up, and he went all the way from 0 at the top to completely innocent to 100% at the bottom or something like that to completely guilty. And he said, now, jury, when you came into this trial, you should have come in with the idea in your mind that this man is 100% innocent, and they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he's guilty. The problem is most jurors actually come into trial and they say, well, we haven't decided yet. You should be able to ask a jury before the trial starts, say, do you think this client is innocent? And if they don't say yes, they shouldn't be taken off the jury. And everybody out there that ever studied and is ever called up for jury duty needs to completely understand a couple of simple concepts. One is called jury nullification. Any juror in America can nullify the law. Let's suppose your state passes a law that says you can't spit on the sidewalks. And you think it's a dumb law, so you walk out and spit on the sidewalk. Well, you get to go to trial, and they've got videotape of you spitting on the sidewalk, and they flash up on the screen, here's the law, here's the evidence. But a juror also thinks it's a dumb law. So after the complete trial, the juror sits there.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Juror listens to everything, and then votes not guilty. Even though it's obvious he's guilty of breaking the law, the not guilty vote says the law is stupid. So I'm hoping there's at least one juror on my trial that says, look, what they're doing to Hovind is wrong. He's not guilty, period. And then, of course, they're going to get pressured by all the other jurors. Oh, you got to give in. Come on, we got to go home. Supper's ready, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, if you want to go home for supper, then let's all vote not guilty and let's all go home, We're not going to put this guy in prison for what he did. But there's evidence that it's crazy. You want me to call back in a couple hours, brother? We got supper and Bible devotions here, but I can call back maybe about an hour and a half.
Yes. Can you write down this number?